All right, hey everybody, it's Mark Pereira. I just did a video a second ago and then saw that the feed was really horrible, so I decided to redo it. I wanted to tell everybody, talk to people about some of the stuff that we've got going on our Telegram forums. I really think that what we're talking about is really significant. It's really powerful stuff. We've got a great team of people on there, and they're asking questions and presenting ideas and talking about theories and hashing out stuff, and it's just really cool. And so what I want to do, because I really want to show everybody like just exactly what we're doing, because I think that if people can see this, and they can get some of these theories and ideas and actually learn from them and stuff like that, they can actually start to break away from what we feel is kind of a superficial look into our stories and lores and stuff, things that have been presented by mainstream academics for a long time, things that have that we just feel are subpar. I mean, a lot of it's deconstructionist. It's just like everything's bad, or it's not true, or it's just it doesn't matter, or it's insignificant, or it's interpolated, or if it doesn't make sense to us, we just say it's not. It was added later. And it's just, and what we're doing is we're really just trying to build, and we're trying to develop things from what we have, and we have a methodology that I think is very sound, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of what we're looking at. I mean, because this is like sacred stuff that we're talking about. This is our lore. These are our stories. This is the foundation of everything. We pretty much glean all of the rest of the culture off of these stories and connect to them. And so we're looking at that. So I want to, talk about some of the examples, some of the ideas that we're shooting around. One of the ones that I brought up today and we kind of talked about and hashed out was the poem Rigsthula. Now, the Rigsthula poem, I know that some people don't believe this, but I do believe that Rig is Heimdall in the story, and there is plenty of evidence to back that up. There's plenty of research to back it up, and it actually does say it in the poem that Rig is Heimdall. And so we're talking about that, and one of the things that we were discussing is the idea that the entire poem just really just plays out the notion of ritual, and it has a lot of ritual in it, and it really connects to a lot of ritual concepts, and it's very important to view that. Like if you look at like the first one of the things that that it's discussed when it's first starting is it's basically three families welcome a god into their home and feed him. And I mean, that's pretty much what a bloat is, what a gathering is, what a connection to the gods is feeding them. It's a communal meal, and all the sources back that up. And we pretty much see that what happens in Rigsthula is an offering to the gods is made, or to Heimdall is made, in the different types of food based on their station, based on what they can afford and what they have. And they offer to that god, and he blesses them with progeny, and he blesses them with the fortune that serves their station, right? And so that pretty much sets off a series of events that show like different rites of passage. And so the rites of passage are actually blessed by the bloats that the offerings are that are given. So you have these different three different families of thralls, carls, and jarls, and they give offerings to the god, and they get blessed based on what they offered and in their station. So so then after we see the offering, we see the bloats and stuff like that, we see these Navna Binda or Navna Fesna, which means the name fastening. It's a naming ceremony for a child. This happens each time, 3 times in it, and each child is born and swaddled in a different colored cloth. Different colored cloths are actually seen in some other sources that we're looking at. We just recently translated a song called the Yule Buck, and it's actually a goat sacrifice, and he's actually wrapped in 3 different colored mantles in the song, and that's been pretty interesting too. But so after that, they have like marriage ceremonies take place, and then there's like the rite of passage that takes place where Khan actually receives the runes, And there's probably other stuff. We could start tearing this thing down and looking at it line by line and seeing what other rituals are connected to it and stuff like that. So that's what we're talking about. Oh, and one other thing I forgot, it was that there's another ritual mentioned in it, and it actually is given a name in Havamal. It's called Havarad, which is a sexual union. It's a consummation, and it means high union. And in this, William Reeves was pointing out a connection to this notion that there's basically two opposing elements, a female element and a male element. And in those two opposing elements, there's always a balancing center element. So we look at that in the story of Gununga Gap, when the heat and the ice come together in Gununga Gap and they form life, right? They form the world tree, and they form Emer, and they form Aldumla, the cow, right? And so these different elements come together and they enter into the Gununga Gap and gestate and create life. Now, in the same sense, in Rigsthula, you have the man and the woman lay down, and the god lies in between them. And the man is, the male force, and the female is the female force. And the god balances the two and blesses them with progeny. And it's the same concept. Erdabrun, the sacred well of the underworld, is the female heat. And Vergelmer is the male penetrating force, the ice. It penetrates Gununga Gap and then is gestated with the heat of Erdabrun to create life. It's the same thing. You have the male and female forces, and then 9 months later, and 9 months is a sacred, or 9 is a sacred number in our beliefs because of that, and it's gestated by a God force, right? And so it's very significant, and that relationship and that connection with the divine is something that gets, that's pervasive throughout the stories, right? And then, like later on, Khan actually, he receives the runes, and that's something we also see with the wells, when Odin receives the runes from Mimir's well and stuff like that. Another symbol that we're looking at, something that I believe is very, very pervasive, and something that's very powerful, and something that we really need to rethink when we're performing bloats, is the sacred kettle, what I call the Os kettle. And that actually is mentioned in Jacob Grimm. He uses the name Os kettle and Thor kettle to basically, says that these people were connected to some kind of sacred cauldrons or kettles. The Os kettle would mean the kettle of the gods, and Thor kettle would mean a kettle devoted directly to Thor, or specifically to Thor. And these cauldrons are mentioned in so many sources and in so many ways. I mean, the most detailed description we have of a bloat is in Hakon the Good saga, and he actually mentions the use of cauldrons. And in Grimnismal, there's actually the strophe that says, all the gods' favor you shall have if you look to the fire, for the gods are welcomed when the kettles are lifted off, right? And it's basically telling you straight up, like, this is like the gods feel welcome when the kettles are opened and the sacrificial meal is shared. And, and so the use of kettles, like you have Thor's kettle, where he lifts the kettle over his head and takes it to Aegir, because mead is brewed in kettles as well. And then you have the kettle of Valhalla, where Seyrimner is cooked in Eldrimner by Andrimner. And if you actually look at the translation of Rimner, some people translate it into like sooty or something like that, or the blackened or something like that. But the Rimner, in every other sense, is always translated as rhyme. And it's actually the name of a giant, and it means the rhyme giant. And so the other, prefixes there are say, eld, and and they say is sea, eld is fire, and is spirit. So you have sea rhyme, fire rhyme, and spirit rhyme. And this is the underworld fountains, like described very specifically. You have the eld rimner, eld rhyme, and the rhyme connects to the primordial stew, the primordial rhyme of Gununga Gap. And Erdabrun is the fire rhyme, Vergelmer is the ice rhyme, and Andrimner is the spirit rhyme. And that spiritual power, it blends the two, and they come together and sustain the Einherjar in Valhall. It's the same concept. The three wells are the sustainers of Yggdrasil, and then Yggdrasil is called the ash, and it's connected to Ask, the man, right? And so when you're performing a bloat and you have the kettle is Gunungagap. It's a symbol of Gunungagap. And then below it, or in the south, is the fire, right? It's like when you look on a map, underneath is the fire, and then in the north above it would be the stew that gets put into it, all right? And that stew would be made of a meat that would be specific to a deity or a festival or whatever, right? And so you'd have those three forces, and those three forces blended together become the sustainer of man, sustainer of the tree, sustainer of men and women who come together for the gathering. So it's a very powerful symbolism, and this is stuff that we're talking about. I've just scratched the surface of what we're discussing every single day on this. I really feel like super excited ever since we kind of moved away from Facebook a little bit, because Facebook is one big giant distraction after another, and it's just one fight after another. And it's like now that we're on Telegram, it's just about the Norn Society work, and we're just focusing on that, and we're breaking apart these symbols and looking at them and seeing how they can apply at different aspects of the culture. Like I've said before, we have 12 fundamentals. Each one is a different aspect: music, diet, dance, law, pantheon, nature, combat, lore, folk and ancestry, arts and crafts, all these different aspects of the culture. And then we can sort of filter them through, these studies and this research, and how we can put them together. And you can be a part of that. And that's something that we want people to get involved with. We need motivated people who have talents in all sorts of different fields. This isn't like just sitting around reading in books and stuff like that. We need musicians and diet and people who are cooks and dancers and all kinds of stuff to get involved and help us to build this research. So if you're interested in joining us, interested in getting involved in these talks, email us, nornosociety@gmail.com, Norroena, nornosociety@gmail.com, and get involved in these talks, man. Because I'm telling you, if you're looking to get beyond just the superficial, with memes and bravado and we're this and we're that, and it's all based on Hollywood or Marvel Comics or just things that aren't spiritually like in depth, and you want something that's spiritually in depth that connects to this heritage, then by all means contact us, join us, because I'm telling you, this is changing the game. And I'm not just bragging because I'm the director of the Norse Society. I'm saying this because I'm talking to these people, and I'm talking to our newer members, and I'm talking to people that are getting on these forums, and it's just awe-inspiring. It really is. So get in touch with us, get involved. Thanks.